Really got to try on that left-hand side. What happened?
Oh, but I've gone up and over and bloody head over biscuit. It wasn't enough stability there for myself, but no, I was busting for a bit of meat this game. It didn't seem to work out.
Hello, cheers, and welcome once again to the Scrum of the Earth podcast, the weekly show for news, reviews, great interviews, and so much more, all about the world of rugby. My name is David Lawrence. I'm an American rugby fan who follows the game wherever I can find it all over the globe. If you want to get in touch, I'm on Blue Sky at Of Scrum, and you can always just drop a good old-fashioned email to the scrumoftheearth@gmail.com. Well, this week's episode is yet another hybrid episode as we've got back one of my personally favorite guests. He's the co-star of the 8-9 Combo podcast. He's the rugby fixer. He's the globe-trotting rugby poet. And if you are a current player from Montpellier, you might want to retain his services as an attorney as well. This is, of course, Mr. Harry Jones. Harry, how is life in the Lone Star State? How the heck are you?
How's it, David? Good to see you again. Everything's fine. It's springtime. Hope springs anew. And it's been one of the best years of rugby so far, and only going to get better with Lions coming around the corner.
It's been incredible. I couldn't agree more. I am curious, as Neil Peart famously wrote, changes aren't permanent, but change is. Is that a microcosm of rugby laws? Like, I've never known a sport more obsessed with tweaking its own laws over and over every single year. Is that a good thing, or are they running the risk of people saying, hey, this isn't the game I was watching 5 years ago?
No, it's definitely bad. It's bad because you don't have some harmony in stats. So you say someone broke a record, it doesn't, it throws it off. If you move pell-mell from favoring attack to favoring defense and get into that pendulum, you can be like the NBA in the 1970s to 80s and 90s, and you kind of lose your way. The leagues that have really solidified who likes them keeps their audience and then draws a new audience. They have a lot more continuity. I mean, you can watch, equipment's different in tennis, but you can watch tennis over the years and there's not much going to change. They might embrace technology to do a foot fault better, or, the shot, or you can bring shot clocks into lots of sports. So that's fine. It's not really changing the fabric. But I think rugby needs to gel some of these things and let them go. Also, I think trials need to be much longer. The sample size is terrible. If you say, oh, we had 5 rounds of 6 nations and we set up our own little lab experiments on red 20 minutes, it's not enough, to see what referee habits are. I like the NFL way where they do a rules committee, a competition committee, double blind survey. They let it play out a long time before they do something different. So yeah, I would encourage rugby to be more proud of the traditions. It's okay to have some matches that are typified by scrum battles. It's okay to have another match where it's end-to-end, globetrotter stuff. It's okay. I think actually, quite frankly, I think some games that you watch are low ball and play and they're fantastic, and some are the other way around. And I don't know why we keep doing that. But I do think sometimes it's the matter of it's only one team can win. And so then all the ones who didn't win perceive an advantage if they can change the rules, and then it flips around.
Nobody's allowed to play in Dublin. That's it.
That's it.
Well, you and I obviously both consume a ton of rugby. That's kind of what I'm hoping to chat and really get into here today. I don't know if you'll actually be willing to answer this question. Do you have a favorite rugby competition right now? It might be against your interest to say who you favor.
Oh, as a league?
Yeah.
URC, because I quite like the spread of variety. I like the fact that it's so many countries. My favorite team, the team I bleed for, die for, the Stormers, plays inside that competition. My true loyalty, my true allegiance is Western Province, Cape Town, Western Cape. So that's always will be. But beyond that, I like the graphics. I like the app. I like how they're treating their fans. And I think it's quite spicy as well right now. Some of the individual rivalries that exist between the Bulls and Glasgow, the Stormers and Munster, Leinster and themselves.
Leinster and the salary cap.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you kind of put your finger right on it. One of the reasons I do consume so much rugby is I love the difference in these competitions. I love that I can watch one game and it's freezing and wet, and the final score is 3-9, and then I watch another game and it's sweltering, and the final score is 31-49. I love the differences. It just makes the whole tapestry richer for me.
No, for sure. The Premiership in England has this kind of misty quality where it looks like every game you're watching has some historical significance. Every game is a derby. There is no non-derby. Everyone's so close to each other. The perceived grievances go way back. Bring up stuff 35, 40 years ago that somebody did me wrong. I like the strip. I like the size of the stadiums for the most part. But then you go across the top 14, and it's like a whole day. If you ever get to go to some of these, everyone should do it. Go to Clermont, go to Montpellier, and spend the whole day. The incredible brunch they have, the very drunken tram ride to the stadiums, the music that just won't stop and has no relevance to the game itself. There's just people banging a drum and blowing a tuba, and you're like, what is happening here?
I often wonder that when you see 7 guys show up carrying drums and brass instruments, the first time that happened, the security guards must have been like, wait a second.
They play all day too. And then, there's the fun of Super Rugby, which is that they just make everything quicker and quicker and quicker. And the fields are like runways. And there's nothing really in the end that we can really deny about the fact that proper Kiwi sides from New Zealand, from the Shaky Isles, when they're on song and they're playing each other, against the North Island, South Island, enmity of brothers. It is just magic to watch.
Well, thank you for teeing that up for me. Super Rugby was the first competition I ever watched. It might still be my favorite. I think it might just be that it has that place in my heart for, discovering it and then opening up this whole, Pandora's box of other competitions. It's cranking along right now. That one of I think the best Super Rugby seasons I've seen. This weekend we started with a great match between the Chiefs and Western Force. The Chiefs didn't have Damien McKenzie, but you know who they did have? Samisoni Tokiaho, his 100th appearance for the club at just 27. He's been unbelievable for them.
What a magic man, humble. He was wearing 150 chocolates on him by the end. They had this amazing technique of rewarding you. Family from Tonga, such a wee island, tiny population, 150,000 people in Tonga, the Kingdom of Tonga, and the disproportionate effect they have, the quality they have in rugby is quite astounding. And, that's part of being Super Rugby Pacific. It became more Pacific. So with the departure of Argentina, the Sun Wolves, South African teams, even though South African teams have been part of the fabric from the beginning, it became more of an identity. They found an identity, and these leagues need to find that because it was going nowhere quickly. And now there's an uptick, 30% better viewership in Australia, 25% better in New Zealand.
That's great news for Australia.
Yeah, and the games and Fiji, literally, I think it's 50% of the island of Fiji.
I saw an article
of Fiji are watching these games.
They should just declare it holidays. It's great.
And proper fortress. I mean, there's a guy I know, Ringo from Johannesburg, and he's like me. If I see that something's going to happen in Fiji, if I see that's the place of the game, I'm watching. I love the guys on the hills. There's people climbing trees. There's entire families singing choirs, kind of thing. It's wholesome. It's good content.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I also think there's no way I'm sitting on my butt on a grass hill for 2 hours. I'm just not doing that. So I'm happy to watch them do it.
To be fair, sometimes they're sliding down in a rainstorm and realizing that at the end there's like a moat. I have seen some of the strangest games play out in Fiji because it's sort of monsoon all year round, and there's people scoring. And normally you see that little bit of mist is good because it slides you in for the try, and you can kind of just slide in from 5 meters out and not worry. But in Fiji, when you do that too early, you just get stuck in a pool. you're just swimming.
Here there be monsters. By the way, this Chiefs match was played at Blake Park, a cricket ground. I'm not sure why they did that, but the Force looked like they could hang for a little while, but the Chiefs kind of blew their doors off by the end, 56-22. Are the Chiefs for real right now, or is this the movie we've seen a bunch of times before?
No, they're good, and they've been properly motivated. Clayton McMillan is off to Munster at the end of the season, so there's that kind of, give my departing coach, who's beloved, he's old school and modern, a good send-off. They were highly animated by the loss to the Blues a year ago. It felt like they should have done better. All year long, they've been playing total rugby, so they are able to go in different styles and win. They dropped a couple, some regrettable ones, but it looks like they have the legs to go all the way. That being said, I wouldn't install anyone as a favorite right now because the Crusaders and the Chiefs, to me, are 1A and 1B.
Yeah. I think they have the same number of table points, and I think the Chiefs just have like a scoring differential holding over them right now.
Tiny, though. I mean, it could vanish. And I think that the Crusaders going ahead and going across the ditch, as they call it, and getting James O'Connor, a great Wallaby, has really helped them. He's like the Mr. Fix-It, because he can play any position from 10 through 15. He's a smart operator. He's not afraid to take the final kick, and so that could be considered quite a coup. Super Rugby has debated that idea of everyone being mobile within the zone. So it doesn't matter if you're Australian, New Zealander, Fijian, like you could just go back and forth and not lose eligibility. However, New Zealand's put a kibosh on that, doesn't like it, doesn't like the idea of a lot of young Kiwis kind of liking the lifestyle in Australia, bigger cities, more crazy fun, and leaving the islands. So we'll have to watch that story.
Well, we also had one of my favorite clashes, the Reds, who are doing well this year against the struggling Blues. And by the way, it was Anzac weekend. Super Rugby does Anzac weekend so well. Like, who knew bagpipes were a thing down under, but they always get the pomp and ceremony just right.
No, it's about 20, 25 minutes before the game starts. And these are remembrances of Gallipoli and other bloodbaths where Anzac soldiers operating as one unit, basically New Zealand and Australia, were sent to slaughter World War One, impossible odds in Turkey and other places. And it's interesting. They're not the most nostalgic of people. I would say that they're kind of let's get with it, let's move forward kind of people. But at the same time, they do look back on this one. What it sets up is this sort of friendly rivalry to an extreme. So the emotions get really high in a place like Queensland. Think of Queensland as being like, I don't know, a place like on the Gulf Coast or something, where you have, the heartland, like real, they call them bogans. You'd call them here rednecks, I suppose. But but they got casinos and a beach. So yeah, maybe it's like Mobile. But it's proper, jingoist stuff. People get really patriotic around it, and good fun. I do think that game itself was kind of a good benchmark because although the Blues haven't got the best record, they are the defending champions. They still have complete studs and units across the whole field, and the Reds handled them quite easily. It looked like the Reds are for real.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, Harry, I think you're the only one of my guests who will actually get this. Hoskins Tutu. He was clearly meant to be an NBA player, right? Like if he was born in the United States, he'd be filthy rich playing power forward for like the Minnesota Timberwolves, right?
Yeah, wingspan, huge hands, can throw him anything and he catches it. He's got aggro, so he'd be nice, on the offensive rebound situation. Yeah. Go get it.
I love watching that guy. You already kind of mentioned the Reds handled them pretty well, 35-21. That might have been the end of the season for the Blues. I don't know if there's a way back from here. They're down there with the Highlanders. That's bad.
It's tight. They have to win out. So everything turns into a knockout. And Vern Carter is a great coach. He could do it. He could just lay down the law, like from now on we're getting 5 points from every single game, and then I think the math still work out for them.
Interesting. Saturday, Moana Pacifica, they were taking on the Drua. The visitors continued their well-established tradition of playing terribly on the road. Home team, they're continuing their tradition of having their best season yet, winning 34-15. Has Artie Savia single-handedly turned around the attitude of this team, or is it more to it than that?
Yeah, it's never won in a game with 30 players on the field that you could never single out one, but it comes as close as it's come to say that one player. turned the fortunes. It was already developing. Moana Pacifica is interesting because it was owned in trust. It's an unusual club, and it was supposed to further the rugby fortunes of Pacifica in general. Pacifica meaning the loose constellation of islands that dot the South Pacific all around. And I mean, it could be tiny, like Cook Islands or Papua New Guinea. It could be any, it's not even just the well-known ones, Samoa and Fiji and Tonga. And so the trouble is, they're this idea of Pacifica, but that they were located in New Zealand.
Right.
Huge expatriate population, but they hadn't connected. This year, they found a home in North Harbor, Albany, which is a place in Auckland where there's a huge percentage, and the fan base attached. It's such a very good case study of how the fan base, allied with Ardie Savea, can really help you get over the line. When you've got the quality, which they always did, but now you got the belief structure. And this was billed as a battle of the Pacific, where the sort of two brothers clashing. So it was good fun. But for sure,
you can visibly see the difference in the stadiums, and you can hear it. Like it's a different vibe.
Fijian Drua are only playing well at home right now. They just cannot close the deal away. So until they fix that problem, they're not going to be a contender.
No. It's weird, too. At the beginning of the match, you see them kind of all joking around and laughing, and it's like, you remember you haven't really won on the road this year. Maybe we get a little serious, maybe?
Yeah, it's a strange vibe. I think every coach who's worked with players from Fiji, it says the same thing, that it's there's very interesting things you have to use in terms of family, heritage, motivation, around training habits and nutrition. All that stuff has to come together. But so here's the good news. If the Drew are the worst team in Super Rugby Pacific, they're pretty darn good. So the bottom of Super Rugby has maybe brought up a little bit. I would argue that
That's a great point.
New Zealand teams haven't been playing as well, so the gap closing has been more about the top and the bottom squeezing in. But still, it's I think the fifth closest version of Super Rugby going back to, whenever it started, 2002 or something. So in terms of score and final 10 minutes, a huge proportion of the games have come down to the final 10 minutes. So that's got to please the organizers.
Yeah, there's been at least a couple of weekends where every single match was a nail biter. I'm a Highlanders supporter. It's not fun.
I'm sorry.
I know. I'm going to go, take some sleeping pills after this. We were trying to avoid complete humiliation against the Crusaders this weekend. And the comms said the Crusaders are punishing the Highlanders early, and I was just stamping my notes with the game over stamp. We chose the first half this week to not play any rugby or score any points, but got 10 in the second half, 10-43. Crusaders, I think, took it easy on them, and the rest of the world must be mad that the Crusaders are back. The Death Star is back to full operation.
Yeah, it turns out that was just one outlier year. It was the spasm in the club from losing Razor, their longtime coach. And now that's been absorbed and Rob Penny has been accepted into the family, and a few tweaks here and there, but not that many. So it really does come down to, I think, what I just said. They are back, and then you have this incredible story where you realize that is one of the great winning histories, and you had 1 year that's almost inexplicable, and like for years to come it'll be part of a trivia test, And so what was the year that the Crusaders were shit? So I think here's the thing about the Highlanders, and this is the joy of stats and why I like stats, is you can just pick out the stats where you're leading. So Highlanders have the best scrum in Super Rugby, I believe. They have something else weird. What is it? Yeah, just pick out the stats you like, David, and then you're fine. You go,
That's right.
Oh, yeah, we don't miss tackles.
We led the league in line-out percentage.
Yeah.
We then flubbed it immediately.
We score a higher percentage of tries from kick return than anyone else. And you're like, but what about the wins and losses? That doesn't matter.
We had the most left-handed guys. By the way, Seba Reese having an incredible year, and Will Jordan, Will Jordan doesn't look like he should be as good as he is. He looks like he's coming to your house to read the meter.
I met him in Dublin the end of last year and had a good chat with him. Could not be nicer. Smart guy too. He doesn't look that smart. He looks too pretty to be smart. He's that lucky player that you realize after a while, no, he's not lucky because he's always in the right spot for a
Right.
reason.
It's his
There's a
angles, right?
there's a guy that comes to mind back in the day for New Zealand called Ben Smith, Ben from accounting, or as they call him, Bin,
Bin
Bin.
Smuff.
Yeah, and so Ben Smith was just always on hand for the lucky bounce. And you started realizing, 23, 23, 25, 27, 33 tries into being All Black. You go, it's not luck. It's not luck.
He's in the booth for the coach's booth for the Highlanders now, but it doesn't seem to be making much difference. I guess.
I did see him celebrating a score for the Landers recently, and I realized it must have been his strike move because he was way too excited for him.
Well, a game I was really looking forward to, the Brumbies were back in Canberra for the Hurricanes. We had another one of these things that I've seen a lot in Super Rugby this year, especially, I mean, frankly, every year. Andy Muirhead gets dropped right on his head. They're like, no penalty, which might have been the right call, but is he sent off for an HIA? No. There's two doctors standing there. The ref says, can you even make it to the sideline? And he goes, no, I want to play. And the ref's like, okay. It doesn't seem like Super Rugby takes these things as seriously as other competitions.
I don't know. There's so many angles to that. Some people argue that it's the presence of league, which clearly does not take head knocks as seriously as union, that bleeds over into the consciousness of Super Rugby. The other part is they swear up and down that the doctors are independent and have no reason to believe they're lying to me. So there just must be some kind of disconnect there between what is perceived and what is real. There's all kinds of things coming down the pike on testing that will give us a better diagnosis quicker. And so hopefully that's going to come around and we can have some technology that's just a lot easier. Like you can just swab someone's tongue and you would know or something. But right now we're a lot with this sort of how many fingers, who's the president of the United States? And then you get the answer like, what? Really?
Ronald Reagan, the actor?
Yeah.
As I already said, like Super Rugby. Oh, by the way, sorry, who won this one? The Hurricanes actually stole this one. I was kind of surprised. The Hurricanes have been struggling, but 29-35 was the final. I already told you this is the first competition I ever watched, so it has a special place in my heart. What do you love about Super Rugby? What does Super Rugby do right that you wish other competitions might kind of take a little advice from?
They have really good rolling stats. They're right on. A lot of the funniest social media operators are in their clubs. The Blues, hands down, is the best social media operator in the world on rugby. He's incredibly funny, snarky, sarcastic, artful, creative. Beginning of this year, when the Blues hadn't won 2 or 3 in a row and was kind of shocking everyone, he just posted the whole table upside down and said, "This is how we look at it." Like stuff like that.
There's something about the speed. You already mentioned it too. Like, I don't know how the Super Rugby pace always seems higher. People up north say, "Oh, that's because they're not playing any defense." And then you look at some of the stats or the scores from like the EPCR Cups, and they're bonkers. There's 90-point games. There's 100-point games. I don't think there's any less defense in Super Rugby necessarily.
There is evidence to the defense being more porous in Super Rugby, because even though there's lots of high scores in other leagues, there's also nils or a lot more where someone gets a 5 or a 7. There's almost none of that in Super Rugby. Almost everyone scores 2 tries. And so the idea of a good defense being that it's 1 try or maybe 2 or less has had trouble. The second thing is they're not using the rush defense the way the top defenses in other leagues are. No one in Super Rugby plays a proper blitz defense. The Hurricanes come close to where they have a modified Scottish coach, modified high line where your midfields are hitting. You're trying to hit the second passer. They're not really doing much of that, and they don't scramble very well. So line breaks are finishing in an extraordinary different percentage-wise in Super Rugby. So if you get a line break in Super Rugby, you're pretty much scoring. That is not true in the top 14. And that is not true in the IRC. There are scramble back defenses, the level of speed, the arrangement of defensive lines.
Interesting.
It's almost like you're looking at Super Rugby as like like the NBA sometimes goes through these periods. Right now, it's in one of those periods where 110, 115 will win you, but 105 might lose a game.
Right.
Whereas if you go back to a certain period of Detroit Pistons or something, you could win a game with 83 points.
Yeah.
So I think Super Rugby has embraced the attack at all costs. Part of that is they get bums in seats. They're really worried about losing both in New Zealand and Australia. New Zealand's worried about losing people to basketball. Like,
really?
It's caught on with Steven Adams and other people doing so well.
Steven Adams must be 48 by now.
But he makes more money than the entire All Blacks put together.
Oh, yes.
So money talks, and kids are like, wow, what if I was that guy? So I think there's that. But the other thing, maybe it's more important, is the referees of Super Rugby have been given a charge, and they've been given a mandate, which is to cut static time. So basically, in Super Rugby now, the fatigue factor is real. And so you get teams ragged out. If you lose a minute of recovery time inside a game because you're never getting to walk to lineouts, they cut 9 seconds off lineout formations, I think 30 seconds off scrum formations. That's brutal to a big boy. And so you are just having the big athletes are getting tireder quicker in Super Rugby than they are in the other comps. And so I think there's all those factors together is making for higher scores for all.
Well, you've already mentioned how much we're loving the IRC this year. We had 3 Friday fixtures this weekend because the game in Italy got moved to accommodate for the Pope's funeral. I thought I saw that they'd actually selected a new Pope, but it turned out it was just some teenagers vaping outside the back of the Vatican.
Sure I'll leave that alone.
Edinburgh, of course, they were visiting Zebre. This is the one that got rescheduled. Of course, Edinburgh lost to Zebre back on Valentine's Day, and they looked desperate to give this one away, but they ended up getting what I'm going to start calling a Scottish victory. In other words, a draw, 25-all. Zebre must be kicking themselves after that, and they've got, 2 more games in the way they exist as we currently know them.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's actually interesting because in the Italian game, it seems like almost all the test players are at Benetton, and you have this kind of bleeding dry. That didn't happen with Edinburgh and Glasgow. There's enough test players on both sides that there's still this critical mass. In Ireland, you have this big problem, though, where the conglomeration, where Ulster doesn't have any current people being picked, and they should probably, Stockdale, etc. But yeah, so it's interesting. Benetton was sitting pretty high. I think they fell down to 8 with that loss to the Stormers, but Zebra is really suffering. Edinburgh is sort of trying to just be the 8th team in the playoffs and be the most average, the average of the IRC.
Somebody told me they're full in on the race to 12.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because Edinburgh has got another one of these hard 4G pitches, and I think the difference in pitches is also part of the charm of the IRC. The difference of the weather, the difference of the feel of the ground. Some of them look really small. I didn't watch the Zebra game. Was it at Zebra or Edinburgh?
It was in Parma.
Yeah, so sometimes you watch that one in Parma and it can look very strange. Just the on TV, it doesn't look like any of the other matches.
It looks like a one I would like to go to, though. Usually I feel like
super fun.
That's why their fans keep showing up. It's like, you know what? This was a great day anyway.
Super fun to go to a human-scaled stadium where halftime entertainment's super interesting and scrambly. And yeah, no, I couldn't get enough of it. It'd be awesome.
Some huge upsets this weekend as well. Cardiff taking down Munster. Munster must have been shocked by this one. It's been a weird, upsetting year for them. But, I mean, Cardiff, they needed this one, 26-21. It was huge.
Feel-good story for Cardiff. But, yeah, Leinster had already made the playoffs. They already had basically the home seed sewn up. And so I think they're putting guys in cotton wool and they're getting ready for the run because they have to navigate 2, right? So this is the year that Leinster is probably favorites to win both the league and also champions. And so they've got to platoon their players. I think they'll bring them back in, by the way, for the final round against Glasgow, I think. Unlucky for Glasgow.
I think so.
They want to get ready for the champions run. But I think the Welsh were given their fortuitous beneficiaries of them playing a C team, basically.
Yeah, indeed. Like, so that was the other one. Hugh must be lying in a pool of his own tears of joy right now when Scarlets took down Leinster. And like you said, Leinster sent the C squad, but like the C squad's usually enough to beat pretty much any other team on earth. So
It
an
has been,
amazing day for
yeah,
Scarlets.
yeah. So good on Scarlets. And also it's interesting because you look at some of the points differential, and I looked at that with Scarlets. They're not a bad team. They've just lost a lot of close matches. They're not nearly as bad as you would see from their log placement. I think they were plus, what are they? They're basically the same points differential as some of the top teams, and so it was always a little bit of a anomaly there.
Well, we had what I think is our final Welsh derby: Ospreys versus Dragons. Not a great exciting match. 14-10 at the break, and then Ospreys just poured it on, 57-24, in what might have been their final game at the Swansea.com. Though they were hinting that the new place in St. Helens might not be ready for September. Big game for Dan Lydiot. By the way, Harry, did you know that Dan Lydiot is French for Dan the Idiot?
No, that's amazing. Chop tackler extraordinaire. The last of the great chop tacklers. Just an ankle tackling farmer.
Well, on Saturday also we had Lions versus Connacht. Bit of a snooze fest. I support Connacht. I don't know why I picked all these loser teams, but I did. I always want the underdog to win, and I've discovered in rugby that doesn't happen very often. But Lions 26-7 at full time. Connacht, with their coach leaving, they look like they've given up.
Yeah, this was Lions at some of their best. Look at the stats. I mean, 33 defenders beaten, 12 line breaks, which is phenomenal in a rugby match. 18 offloads. They just did everything right. So, fair play. Yeah, there's something about your psyche then we have to examine about why you always want to pick these teams that make you suffer. Do you have sadomasochistic tendencies?
Well, when I discovered Super Rugby, I was like, well, I can't pick the Crusaders. It's like picking I would have been picking the Yankees back in the day, but anyway.
Right. Yeah. It's like someone in Milan and they got a New York Yankees hat on. You're like, come on, too
They're
obvious.
everywhere in New Zealand, and Chicago Bulls jerseys with Yankees hat. It's incredible.
Yeah. So here's a great stat for you on the Lions Connacht game, which is a death. It's hell for you. Lions retained 8 of their kicks. So when you put up kicks and you hope to get some of them back, retaining a kick is one of the worst alarm station situations for a defense. And to get 8 retained is terrible. I played this game with some of our guests on 8-9 Combo. Preeminent coaches and players, and it's sort of like, which 5 things would you hate the most to happen to you?
Ooh.
So 5 line breaks happen to you, you get 5 line outs stolen, you get 5 kicks regained, or you lose 5 scrum penalties. And it's interesting to hear the coaches reason through. I mean, everyone hates 5 scrum penalties because you're probably going to get carded, and every time you get a scrum penalty, that means you get kicked to the corner, so it's an easy entry. Losing lineouts is horrible. But a lot of them have talked to me about the kick regain, because sometimes you have no one behind the guy who didn't get the kick, so it's you're off to the races.
And the stats with lineouts are always weird anyway, because I could completely botch it and you might end up getting it anyway. Like there's I completely screwed up that lineout, but we have it and we just scored. So like it's always a deceptive stat for me.
Mm-hmm. And sometimes you get scrappy lineout. It's almost worse. It's almost like better to break your ankle than sprain it. If you get a scrappy line out, the ball's bouncing around, your smallest guy on your team is about to get killed in the back by about 5 of the biggest guys. Yeah, it's like you won the line out, you lost the war.
Who else did we have? Stormers. Your Stormers. They were back in Cape Town for Benetton. Stormers weren't messing around this weekend, shutting out their guests 30-0 by the break, blowing them away 56-5 by the end. Where's this performance been hiding? Before today, 36 points was the most they had scored. Are they just kind of rounding into shape at just the right time?
We're fine. We're taking this thing by the neck. This reminds me of Munster 2 years ago, where they kind of just built, and then had a nice stretch run. I'm not saying someone's going to win, but they're going to make somebody work really hard to beat them at this point. Sasha Feinberg Ngomazulu is one of those special players where when he plays and you watch him, you can tell there's something very different.
Yeah.
It's the time and space. It's
the world is waking up to him.
Feeling like you have a lot of time for some reason. He's young still, but he's got great footballing skills. You can almost he has Thierry Henry footballing skills. I think his favorite team is Arsenal. But then you also have the proper, like he fended 3 guys in one run. Also situational awareness. He was knocked in the air. He uses 2 hands to catch way above his head. He doesn't do the cradle into the chest because it bounces off. He actually takes it like a basketball player. And then he got taken his legs out, but he sat down on the guy who took his legs out. The referee blows the whistle for it and says penalty. He taps and goes while he's still sitting on the Italian guy that knocked him out. And then he runs mazily through the entire Benetton, which is basically the Italian test team defense, and then decides to do an out of the back offload for no apparent reason. He could just do it normally. He dummies it and then shoots a perfect spiral to Dan Duplessis, who runs untouched under the poles. And then when he's taking the conversion, he hits the top of Cape Town Stadium, which is so high. It's unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
He had a drop goal that he went over the poles, over the actual top of the poles. No, this young lad is destined for greatness. If he can just stay healthy, yeah, we're looking at an actual like special person.
It seems like every podcast I listen to is highlighting him now. Everyone has woken up at the same time about how good he is.
Yeah, he was captain of Bishop's great high school in Cape Town, and well-spoken. He's a real thinker. His dad has always been a great footballing, fan. But Sasha's just got kind of this weird mix, superstar, good in the camera. He looks like someone who'll be a captain of the Springboks one day.
I don't know why I have a huge mental block on his name. I cannot say it. You even did like a pronunciation guide on the 8-9 combo once, telling everyone how to say it. And every time I try, I botch it. And this is from somebody who can actually say Nwangana Tinawase, even though.
Yeah, so Sasha's easy, right? You got that. Feinberg, you got that, right? So you're just bugging down on Mngomezulu. So here's the key to that from you. You probably have a little bit of Spanish stuff going on in your world. Just make it to Gomez. Just focus on the Gomez. And then you just add a before the Gomez and a Zulu at the end.
I'll pretend I'm thinking about it. Gomezulu.
There you go.
We had the festering corpse of Ulster. They were at home for Sharks. What is up with the Sharks? Like, they have one of the best looking squads on paper, but when Etzebeth isn't out there, they seem to go to pieces. Am I misreading this? And where is Eben this year? He's missed so many games.
Yeah, he had a really bad concussion, and they really wanted to baby him back because obviously, he's one of the all-time greats and crucial to the Bok campaign. But right when he was coming back from the concussion and got rid of all symptoms, he tweaked a hamstring. And, for a jumping lock and a line out, a hamstring is, death. So they brought him along slowly. He did play recently, but he sort of platooned in and out. Then he gets in card trouble. So I think it's just it's not been his season. But your point is well made in general. Sharks, even though they're sitting there at 4th in the log, they obviously on paper should be right there with Leinster because they have that kind of squad. People have said it's coaching, hard to deny. South African coaches, some of the best coaches are overseas right now. Johan van Kraan bringing Bath to the Premiership title here in MLR, Porto Human at the Sabercats doing quite well. You have Jacques Nienaber, the defensive gurus at Leinster. So it's all over the place. Some guys in Japan. So I think there's a paucity of assistant coaching and IP around. Sharks just look like an old school team. Plumtree's got no ideas. I was around them in London a year ago, and it just felt that players were scared of him. He wasn't with the new generation thing where you chat and you have fun and you motivate. So it just looks like they're not having any fun. And that being said, there they are, 4th. Yeah. And who would want to play them in a knockout game? I wouldn't, because they're really a good knockout team, and they could just keep winning by 2 or 3. No sex, no fun, no glamour. But they could lift a trophy. They know how to win a game.
Afalele Fase is one of my favorite players too. He brings so much, and he's always smiling. You see him chatting with like the sideline officials and stuff, and everyone's charmed by him. Everyone on the field is like, "Oh, I love this guy."
The weekend special. He is so quick. There's a lot of apocryphal stories about how quick he is. We don't know if those are true or not, but that's why they're apocryphal. But there's apparently some like really well known. I mean, South Africa breeds like crazy good sprinters, right? Olympics. But he's right there, apparently. That he's one of those guys who can correct the 10 seconds, maybe.
Wow.
So when he's got any kind of lane, there's no one else. There's not that many guys in rugby that could stay with him. I just think it's interesting. We might see more of the Sharks on this stretch run and find all of ourselves sounding a bit stupid when we were critical about the style.
Mm.
And then Plumtree will take credit, but he shouldn't, because I think he should have. I mean, I think they should have been right there all along at the top of the league.
Something you said earlier about, in Super Rugby, this mandate to keep the game going and cutting out these little tiny sections. Is Vincent Koch the best in the world at oh, my shoelace is untied. Oh, my thigh kind of hurts. He buys his pack 30 seconds, 45 seconds better than anyone I can imagine.
Yeah, I quite like that. He's actually one of the funniest guys on the Springbok team.
Really?
He's deadpan, hilarious. Played a game of poker with the Bomb Squad once, and he is a guy who can make you wet your pants. He's funny.
I love the Sharks too. When they're on, they're one of my favorite teams to watch. This was 2 weeks in a row. They waited until the very last moment to grab that victory. I'm curious about your sort of theory about this. Is that the sign of a really tough team that finds a way to win when it counts, or is that the sign of a team that kind of needs to get their stuff together?
I mean, I'm not a Shark supporter, but it'd be very frustrating if I were. They only regained 2 kicks, which is insane. If you have Hendricks or Brothers, the chasers, the quality of Fassi, no one can beat Fassi in the air. I mean, maybe Suali'i could give him a shot, but most guys are not going to beat him. He's long-limbed, super quick, vertical leap. What was happening there? Give Mapimpi something to chase. They had the majority of the ball and the field. Sharks just decided at the end to play. Captain Kulisi must have said, "Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to go right. I'm going to play through them." And there was this moment where the switch flipped and it just played through Ulster, who was a hard nut team. So it's not easy to play through them. They did not try to go around them. They did not try to be exciting and flair. It was just, we're just going to take this up the gut through you, ball under the jumper, smash mouths and snot knocking. And I would say that's what they got to do from here on out. And then if they do that, they'll probably keep winning.
It looked like Ulster played a big squad that day. It looked like they were like, how we can win this if we play really big, and it might have backfired. They looked slow as dirt.
Yeah, they scrummed well though.
Yeah.
So they avoided one of it. So I guess that's the cool thing about rugby. Whack-a-mole, I do this, but then that makes me short over here, and you upsize, and then you're not quick enough. So I don't. Ulster's had a really rough season as well, and no one loves rugby more than the Ulstermen. They're living and dying with it. I feel bad for them. That's a team that I do kind of support, Ulster, and really like them a lot.
Well, I think we both have already kind of implied it or said it outright. This may have been the best URC season so far. It still feels like everyone's just lining up to get crushed by Leinster. What do you like most about the URC? What are they getting right that other competitions should be saying, oh, you know what, we should think about that?
The URC explains things really well. So if someone's cited and there's a punishment, it's 4 window panes, clear, exactly what happened. They do it quickly. They apologize for mistakes really quickly and forthrightly, and they explain what the referee got wrong, so it diminishes the controversy. They've got their shields right, where you play inside your region more than you play across regions, so that helps on the travel, and it breeds some inter-rivalry. So you're still playing for something. If you're in the Welsh contingent, you might not really be thinking you might win the league, but you're going to win the Welsh Shield,
the hubcap,
sort of a conference thing. And I think it's a lot of cool, like, big personalities, a lot of diversity in the ERC.
Well, I want to skip on up to France for the top 14. It was I think it was round 347 this week. On Saturday, we started with Parole City, Montpellier, hosting Perpignan. Not a huge crowd on hand, but, it might not have been a visiting day. One guy I was surprised to see, applying his trade there is Cobus Reinach. I love that guy. He led the Premiership in tries like 6 years ago, I think it was. Love that guy.
Coming home to Cape Town for next season. He'll be with the Stormers, and an incredible signing because that's really
great.
what we need. We need exactly like someone like Corbis to run the ship. But and I think Sasha will love playing outside Corbis. No, so the top 14, one of the cool things about top 14 is it's sort of like if you've ever wondered where player X went to, they're somewhere in a French village.
Enjoying great food and 682 rounds of rugby.
Yeah, top 14 really takes them through a marathon. And so by force, per force, they have to platoon and plan. They don't throw games, but they literally circle 6 or 7 games that they're not really that into. And because you have that many rounds plus the Champions and Challenge Cup, you just have to. I mean, let's say you have 50 players in your squad. And if Jake White is correct, the Bulls coach, that you lose about 1.5 per game upwards, near the end of the season, you might drop 2.5 for injury on an average basis. So 3 every 2 games, 5 every 3 games. And then you get people coming back. Let's say you get 1 back during that time period. Well, it doesn't take too many mathematical courses for you to know that if you start the season with about 40 players, by the end of the season, you got 30, which means you have problems if anyone drops in form. And so what they do in top 14 is they just kind of have this very complicated campaign mapped out, storyboarded. And so that can be annoying if you're a guy who wants to see the best team every week. You're not going to get that from the top 14. You're going to get some very exotic lineups.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned Jake White. I love how salty he is. I don't think there's ever a moment in any day when he's not saying something salty.
I went to Captain's Run with him. The Bulls were in Munster and I was in Munster. So that was 2 weeks ago. Couldn't have been nicer. Talked about books, talked about life. Got a son in Nashville. He was talking about that.
Wow.
Yeah, it couldn't have been nicer. And I even said to him, I go, hey, why are you so like, I use different words, most African words, but like, what's the different personalities here? And he just likes giving journalists a go. he just thinks it's part of the deal. Yeah. He's a nice guy.
I love it. I think it's great. In this one, of course, the Bad Boys won it 19-13. The middle games featured Clermont versus Lyon, home team winning by 8 in a 70-pointer. Bayonne versus Pau was another close one, 27-22. Toulouse versus Cast was never close. It was 31-6 at halftime, and Cast didn't really seem interested in changing things in the second half. The league leaders winning easily, 52-6. Vaughan, they thoroughly surprised me by beating Toulon 29-19. Being the newly promoted team in the top 14, it carries a terrible curse.
Yeah, it's wild. I guess they're going right back down. I think that's been the story of relegation promotion. It still serves a purpose, though, the shaky bottom and knowing that you could go down, because it does. I think it motivates, teams caring a lot for longer. I was hoping for more out of this round. I thought that, Clermont versus Lyon was going to be a cracker of a game. And I kind of thought Lyon was going to take it, but that's that middle. And I do judge these leagues, Prem, URC, Super Rugby, and Top 14 a lot by what the middle looks like, because everyone's got a weak team. And everyone's got a crazy good couple of teams at the top. But if you look at the top 14, you think, what's the average? La Rochelle, Clermont, Montpellier, Lyon. Whoa, those are some good teams, right? You look at the middle of the Prem or the URC. URC, I guess, would be Edinburgh, Stormers, Scarlets. And then maybe Super Rugby would be Waratahs, Moana, Force. So you can immediately tell the top 14 is strong, because who'd want to play, La Rochelle if you were the Force? It'd be terrible.
Well, you often highlight the importance of looking at points differential, and I think most of these tables we're talking about are bearing that out right now. Like the teams that are qualified for the whatever postseason they might have, all positive points differential, and opposite on the downside. I think it's a really telling stat.
Yeah, and if you do squeeze in by virtue of losing bonus points or winning bonus points or other permutations, but you have a bad PD points differential, you never go anywhere in the playoffs. I mean, you might squeeze in, but you're going to get ousted.
Yep.
And when you look at the finals, the grand finals of all these comps, it's always the two teams that are left standing, they always have good points differential.
Yeah. Well, this might be the only competition where I kind of picked a winner. I picked, I call them the Border Beagles, Ube Bay. They were against the Ghost of La Rochelle this weekend. Winnie Antonio and friends, they looked up to the challenge. I love Winnie Antonio. I love Will Skelton. He took a bit of a knock, and I hate seeing either of those guys going off. I love huge players with silky soft hands.
Yeah, it's really remarkable the size upskilling of rugby. If you look at 20 years, 15 years back, you just you never really thought about a guy like Will Skelton or Emmanuel Miafu playing pivot in a pod attack. They would have been cleaners, and the coach would have told them, "Hey, I want you to touch the ball 5 or 6 times. Most that's in the line out. If you are carrying, go to ground quickly. I don't want you running around, And now it's the other way around. I think, especially in French rugby, they really love the size. They recruit for size, but then they require of those guys to be all court players, good hands. I think it's great fun. I don't know. Like, it's funny for people who don't know rugby that much to understand how big a man a guy like Will Skelton is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like literally like running around. He's like an offensive lineman in the NFL.
Yeah.
And yet he's running around for 75 minutes.
At the MLR final 2 years ago, I was in Chicago to watch my Free Jacks win, and Shaq was the DJ. He was the halftime entertainment, and they had Shaq deliver the game ball at the start of the match, and the size of the rugby ball in Shaq's hand, everyone in the crowd was like, "Ah, why can't we have this guy?"
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, you look at some guys like Manny Miafu is a good example of this. He makes the ball look like a little tennis ball.
Yeah. It's a brilliant competition, though. We do have, by the way, UAB, they kind of put on a stinker. I was a little surprised. La Rochelle, who have been a husk of themselves, ended up winning that one 10-21. I don't know. It felt like it should have been worse. I don't know what happened with UAB this week.
Yeah, for people that follow me on social media, they'll see that I do a Harry Index every week. It's my attempt to, well, not mine.
I love the Harry Index every week. I'm checking it next to my own.
Yes, and it attempts to extrapolate and amalgate these different comps and figure out a way, like a power index. But you have to really be subjective to factor in when, like, say, Leinster fields a substandard team. You don't ding them too much on a loss. But I actually knocked Bordeaux down, and it wasn't just because of this one. I feel like there's been some cracks in the Bordeaux magic of late. So Toulouse has regained the number 2 spot. Toulouse had lost it because I thought that when Antoine Dupont went out, they really suffered, but now they seem to have found their magic again.
Yeah.
And in some ways, this is heretical, but in some ways they're a better team because they're not looking at one player to do much, all of it. They're actually sharing the load. That can happen in every sport. You have the best player on your team. I mean, he is definitely the best player on the team. But he might have been stunting some of their growth because everyone was just going, "Oh, Antoine, what are we going to do now?"
Later on today, we've actually got the battle of the insane Parisian teams. Racing will be taking on the Drink Boxes, Stade Francais. Don't know if I'm going to be watching that one. By the way, I love Stade Francais, where the coaches are all required to have Capri Suns lined up in front of them. Never will anyone pick one up or drink anything from one, but they have to be there. I don't know why. I love that.
That's great. And I do love the fact that you're probably going to go into what do I like about top 14. And There's a lot to like. But one thing I do like is the coaches on the field, on the sidelines, pacing and getting in each other's faces, having drama. I'm all for it.
And the owners usually sit with each other in the stands too, and they get lots of awkward shots when they're mad at each other too. Yeah. My favorite thing is we talked about the promotion and relegation. They have that extra layer of dread where you might have to face the loser of the Pro D2 final and also get relegated. Like, that must be the highest stakes game there is because it's unlikely, but what a nail biter. I love that aspect.
The relationship between top 14 and Pro D2 is actually cool because Pro D2 is, I think, it's the second most lucrative competition in the world. So you have number 1 and number 2. Although it's like you say, it's massive to be relegated. It's like having 2 proper competitions, full range, all the way, 14 teams in the one, and then Pro D2 right under it. There are people getting picked and will be picked for the Lions possibly from Pro D2.
Interesting. Yeah, some of the players I've loved. I've always been a Sam Davies fan. I loved him with the Dragons, and he was like, "Oh, I'll leave the terrible Dragons for a not very good Pro D2 team." But God bless him.
Yeah, I think Courtney Laws might get picked from Breve. So yeah, we'll see.
So the comp that I don't really spend that much time watching, I've really kind of lost interest. The Premiership isn't really floating my boat these days. On Friday, Sale somehow blew away the Saracens 25-7. Bath, they ran riot over lowly Newcastle 55-19. Leicester Tigers blasted my Harlequins, another team a weird team for me to pick to support. They've become a broken down shambles before our very eyes. 40-7 was that one. Northampton beat up the Bristol Bears 48-31. Who says they don't score lots of points in the Prem? And then earlier today, Gloucester decimated Exeter 43-7. Want to guess what the halftime score was in that one? 43-7. You know what, everyone? Go home.
Yeah. The Gloucester captain said that they had heard Exeter call them soft or something and decided to run up a score. Premiership's been interesting. I actually do follow it quite well because there's a lot of South African players that play in it, like Andre Pollard, the starting fly-off, Thomas de Toy, the try-scoring prop, who plays with Johan van Kraan, who's coaching there in that elbow patch, soft loafer Maserati driving this town called Bath. Quinn's is the proverbial quintessential average team. They just don't mind finishing mid-table, and then every 4 years, making a run. The ownership has basically said that's the best way to make money. It's
Really?
a vibe. It's there's no better place than the Stoop as far as just a night out in rugby. It's super fun. And their supporters know they're very well-heeled people too there in Richmond area.
I'm
Lasso
told it
territory.
is a very posh team.
Yeah, and so they just have a good time, and then they kind of know, like, we don't want to break the bank on salaries, and we don't want to be grim and mean like the Saracens once upon a time were. The big story right now is Sale is closing hard.
Yeah.
Saints on the way up. Michael Cheika has Leicester Tigers playing proper rugby. And then you have the top team that's just sort of like waiting in the wings and saying, can anyone take us down? I think it sets up a really cool Final Four, which is, the best thing about the Prem. I'll go right there right now. I love that it's hard to get in the playoffs. I love that it's just a 4-team, boom, let's go. They play it all like in one area. I think it's in the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They stage it. It's like a Super Bowl-ish, and to get in is very difficult. And
do they need to get back to 12 teams? Does that need to expand, or do you like this Final Four, going right to the Final Four?
Well, there's a lot of whispers about maybe Wales becoming an Anglo-Welsh league. There's a lot of talk about how the ERC might want to conglomerate with the Prem and have basically two conferences. One thing that the Prem has to avoid, and it's what MLR is doing really well, is don't allow sick, virus-infested, financial balance sheets to exist too long, because in the end you have the London Irish Wasps fold anyway. So they've got to get a handle on that. There's a Telegraph has just reported a big new deal that might be help on the way for the Prem, and they might be able to shore it up. And they're looking at doing franchises, to your point, and getting away from these age-old, ancient clubs, which are usually rife with old boys, and it's the brother-in-law gets hired to do the marketing, doesn't work, and a lot of them are just portfolio advertising, where you have billionaire owns industrialist situation, and they go, oh, by the way, I have a rugby team, let's all go down there. And so it's almost like a old boys thing.
Interesting.
So there's a talk about having proper franchises the way there is in South Africa and other places, and you would build a brand and you would fund it. And I think they recognize your point about they have to do something different.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time, so I need to kind of hit the accelerator button rather than go through the actual fixtures this weekend. My Free Jacks are starting to look pretty good. We're on a bit of a run right now. I had to go to the what I of course am calling the Storm Week fixture. We had to play against the Bell Ends of Los Angeles on a Tuesday night. I love the NPC, and I always talk about how great the Storm Weeks are because I get Wednesday morning rugby. Like I wake up and there's a game I can watch, and I love it. And then as soon as they introduce it in Major League Rugby, I'm like, how dare you? We've only had 5 days rest. But what is MLR doing right that other teams might across the globe might think, oh, you know what? Maybe we should try that.
Explanations of ref calls. I think the sensitivity to the fact that there's a new audience, and so I like the fact that in any grounds I've been in, there's an actual explanation on the screen
Mm,
for the call, and you'd be surprised how many people who do grow up in New Zealand or South Africa don't know the reason. Like they know, like they're into rugby, but they don't even know. And so
oh, that's funny.
people who have come and I've been around who saw that would go like, I like that. I wish we had that at Ellis Park. And because it should never be worse to be at the park than
Right.
watching it on TV. So I think MLR is just traditionally or maybe culturally really good at customer service and knowing that we are happy to have you here. So let's add things. It's fireworks in the Houston area, or it's a cool 80s music vibe in New England, or in Seattle it might be some kind of theme orientated thing. I think that's great to actually sell the game
Yeah.
and not be too don't think you're too good for that. So MLR's got that spirit. The other thing
There's simple things like when you go to Fort Quincy, as we call it here, like the players come through the stadium. They're not hidden away back in a changing room and then they just appear on the field. They come through. They all know that people are going to stop them and ask for a selfie and chat, and they're all good.
Yeah, I think that's good. So I think accessibility is good. Yeah, I think there's a spirit of optimism. I quite like the geographical difference too. It kind of appeals to my brain that you have
Hmm.
such interesting concepts like New Orleans playing Seattle. It's cool. I think there's a lot of young players who say they don't mind and want to maybe even take a shot at MLR just for that issue of going to see different places, not just being a guy from Melbourne and then you play Sydney and go to Queens. Like they like the incredible difference of
Right.
Quincy to San Diego.
It's interesting because I've talked many times with Alex Magleby, the CEO of the Free Jacks, and he told me once the biggest enemy of USA Rugby is distance.
Sure, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it's also the thing to market, which is what the NBA has always known, which is rivalries can be continental. It doesn't have to be next door. Like some sports really depend on that, but Celtics Lakers, like it's a whole continent apart. And
Yeah.
so you sell the idea of West Coast versus East Coast. It's cool.
Well, it's funny you say that because MLR, of course, has the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Very American thing. We're used to that with all our sports. Should other rugby competitions think about that? The NPC kind of did that, but it was more like a tier 1 and tier 2, I think.
They tried it in Super Rugby and it bombed terribly. Everyone hated it, but I think that was the wrong thing that people hated. I think it was just getting too big, and so I do think it's really important to understand the competition for the casual fan to get highly animated. You shouldn't have to have a slide rule and an abacus and an actuarial degree to understand what's going on.
Yeah. Harry, I got to let you go. I want to ask you 2 questions that I've asked several guests recently because I'm dying to get your take on it. You got Bowden, you got Geordie, you got Scott. Which Barrett do you want to be?
Geordie.
Because it's too expensive to live in Dublin otherwise?
I just think he can do more stuff. He's like the hybrid. Scooter is the hallway prefect with a big blockhead and getting carded all the time. Bowden is a whippet greyhound screeching around and all that, missing kicks to lose games. Geordie just seems to be like a guy who could play flank or he could play 12 and a fullback or lock. It wouldn't matter. I feel like his dad probably secretly is a favorite.
And the other side of that coin, who do you want to be, Acker or Duhan?
Acker, the angry warthog.
The angry warthog, the best nickname of all time.
Looks like he's about 87 years old, and there's his brother looking like a GQ model.
That's I'd be so mad. I'd be like, listen. But the fact is, there's a lot more Van der Merwes out there who aren't brothers. Who's your best Van der Merwe of all time?
You know what's really funny about that? So in South Africa, Van der Merwe is literally the punchline to a joke. It's like saying an Aggie joke or something in Texas.
I've heard this.
Yeah. No, I think Flip Van der Merwe would be biggest bum in rugby. Like not even close. Yeah, largest buttocks.
That's quite a record as well.
Yeah, it's hard to shift in a mole, that's for sure.
Harry Jones, the globe-trotting rugby poet, it is so great to catch up. Thank you for your time, for joining us here again. Before I let you go, what's coming up next for the 8-9 combo? I've been loving the podcast. It's been growing by leaps and bounds. Obviously, you keep smashing your own records and expectations. You got any great guests you can sort of tease? What's on the horizon for the 8-9?
Well, I'm chasing Michael Checker right now, and we do talk, but trying to nail him down. It's really difficult to do.
If you get him, can you get him to hold the cricket bat, just kind of bang it in his hand the whole time?
Yes. We are going to debate this week the most average of all. Like, we're going to do the averagest average of each comp. So we're trying to find the average team, and it's not just as simple as seeing where you are on the log and your points differential. It's got to be like you got to even seem average, feel average. And if anything disturbs that, or like if you have a big blowout win, you've lost your averageness.
Yeah.
That's bad news. Yeah.
Well, you did a great special with Lee Calvert on the Blood and Mud, and of course he's famous for doing the "He's So Club" thing.
What a great! I mean, you are a really good interviewer, by the way. You ask really good questions. Lee's got that knack of like you go into the interview, I'm not going to say anything about this or that, and then you find yourself blubbering like you're on Oprah.
It's his voice. It's magical somehow.
Soothing.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to let you go. Harry Jones, thank you so much for your time. It's always great to catch up. I really appreciate your humor, your insights, and everything else that comes along with it. Any final thoughts before we get back to the hot streets of wherever you are?
David, I'm just going to tell you right now, you do a great job. It's really important what you're doing, and there are a lot of people who really enjoy it. So keep on doing it, man.
Thank you so much. That means a heck of a lot. And if you can get, if you can convince Brett of that, I would love to have him on the show someday. That'd be great.
He'll do it. I'll ask him. Okay.
Nice. Cheers. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
And be well.
It gives me great pleasure to be here today.
Oh, it does, neat. You want to tempt the wrath of the whatever from high atop the thing?